Hey guys, and welcome back to the Pennies to Pounds podcast with your host Kia. And this is a podcast where we aim to dispel your myths, simplify difficult financial jargon, and rectify your own personal problems. Happy Monday, everyone. I hope you're having a great start to your week. And to add to that, I have got another amazing episode. We are going to be talking about all things money. Naturally, it's a Pennies to Pounds podcast, but we're going a bit deeper. We're going to talk about how it's actually affecting you guys at home. Cost of living, what does that mean for how you are just spending your money? And I've got some amazing guests to help me do this. They have put together something really incredible, but I'm going to let them explain it. So guess, who are you?
Hi, I'm Tumisha and I co-run Tag Agency.
I'm Alvin and I co-run it with Tumisha. Should I explain what Tag is?
Yes, please.
So it's a youth culture and creative agency connecting brands to youth culture, building worlds, telling stories, driving business results. But I think most importantly, investing in young people, culture and communities.
So what made you guys want to start this agency and, be in this world?
I grew up in South London, he grew up in East London. And we both wanted to be bankers because we thought that was the only way to make money. And we would go to these events and they always labeled us underrepresented and marginalized, etc. And we are marginalized, but I feel like growing up, I had all the latest clothes. I weren't struggling. I had food in my house. So Tag actually stands for The Advantage Group because we never felt we were at a disadvantage. And then Alvin really just wanted to help young people. And then he threw an event at Google. And then I jumped on the bandwagon. And then, that's it really.
And
amazing.
How it started. And then in 2020, I think at the height of the global pandemic and global Black Lives Matter protests, we were speaking with a lot of brands and we realized the ways they were working were quite extractive. So we said, let's try something new. Tumisha was like, we should become an agency. It's basically the same work, creating opportunity for young people, but getting brands to put their money where their mouth is. And so in 2020, we pivoted and we've been an agency since then.
It's amazing to have an agency like yours that is really shining a light and being that beacon for young people. You guys have recently released something that prior to this recording, I was fully aware of. So I'd gone through it. I thought it was incredible. But tell us what it is and what made you guys want to put it together.
Cool. So we released a report called the Pennies report. It was actually Alvin's idea. I think last year he was like, I think we should do a report. We don't know what on. And we were just brainstorming. And he said, we should do it on the cost of living. So we had many stages to it. It actually started in January 2020. Last year, basically. And essentially we gathered 80 young people and we threw a vision board party to sort of collect the insights, see what how the cost of living is affecting them, how they're dreaming in a crisis, etc. And then we took all of those insights and turned it to a report. So it sort of discusses how young people are playing, eating, loving, literally spending their money and where they're going out. And yeah.
It's such a good read because I went through it and it's just a really good insight. Obviously, you have your peers, you have your friends, and you know how it's affecting people. But when you put it on a bigger scale like that, you're like, wow, people are really feeling that pinch. So let me ask you, what are some of the top things that came out of that report that you'd say?
Having kind of co-wrote parts of it, it's there was always new things that stood out to me. I think I'm interested in fashion and beauty just more generally, and how we perceive it, and I think the idea that it's more difficult to be beautiful. It's always been difficult to be beautiful, but it's now even more difficult to be beautiful. And as a result, what we're seeing is people are just taking it into their own hands. From thrifting to DIY and to essentially anything that might have had a huge cost to it. I'm gonna try it at home. Even to the extent invasive procedures people are doing at home. People are piercing their own ears, which
Yes,
they
I've
should.
heard that.
Generally, I don't care.
You know what's
To the
so
camera,
funny,
you
Joe?
should not be doing that.
But I was doing that in school.
Stop piercing your own ear. We'll figure something out. Come and talk to me. But I think the pressure to be beautiful, and we spoke yesterday somewhere, and I said I think this is a real opportunity for us to kind of just redefine what we see is beautiful, and I guess open the barriers to entry to an extent, because it doesn't have to be this hard to be beautiful.
It doesn't. It really, really doesn't.
So expensive.
So expensive.
And I just don't think, I think social media is great, but I also don't think it makes it easier when you're seeing, and actually an influencer did a video on this of like saying, guys, like you can use similar products to me, but don't buy everything I have because I get gifted so much. And I really appreciated that transparency. So it was Uche. I really appreciate that transparency because you'll have young girls just like, oh, I need to buy this, I need to buy that for my makeup to look like this. But I think it's important that like people step up and say like, yo, I'd be getting this stuff for free, right? Because you have young girls like looking up to them and wanting to like essentially look like them and spending all their money.
But I think that is almost like the cost of social media because people always put the best versions of themselves online. So if we bring it back to beauty, people are always going to show themselves at their best, show their best products. And I've known people who wanted to get into like creating makeup videos, and obviously for them to be able to launch their career, they would do their makeup and lie about the products that they were using.
Yeah,
because obviously, you know, they don't have the products, but they're saying, I'm using this really expensive thing. They don't have it. They're using like...
and like even... Or like if a brand was like... I remember like I heard that like a girl was getting gifted by a brand, skincare, but she hated the skincare. So she will say this is what she's doing because they're paying her, but she was actually using her like normal products.
Crazy.
And it's just like, that is insane to me. Like,
crazy.
So yeah, I think it's hard out there.
It's very, very hard. But I think on the flip side, I don't know about you guys, but I'm seeing a lot more DIY. Here's how you do your own hair, lashes, you know, for a woman, all these kind of things that you can do at home, which I think has really given rise to people cutting back and saying, you know, I can make these changes.
And I think from the fashion standpoint, like I'm a thrifter at heart anyway. Like I'm a thrift anything. I'm gonna like sell, replace, rebuy, etc. And I feel like it feels less like a taboo to like buy secondhand clothes now, which is amazing because I'm still buying like pretty expensive things, but I'm getting it for a third of the price. Like I've won, like genuinely, I get like Jean Paul off eBay and stuff like that for £50. I'm not complaining. So I think that there's also like the flip side where like people are being a bit more transparent and not spending thousands of pounds on clothes that they might like but can't afford.
I think tutorial culture on TikTok has helped that quite a bit as well. Like anything you might want to do. I know that the girls have been doing this on YouTube for a while, but like on that TikTok, it's like in 1 minute you can. I always say that I personally, so I believe that I've never done it before, but I think I can lay down a frontal.
You think you can do it?
I think I can do it. I keep saying this to people. I just need someone to give me the opportunity, but like genuinely,
you watch enough. To be fair, pretty a lot that's come on your For You page. I can do it.
There's so much that's on my For You page to the point where I believe I can't do my own hair, but like all I have to do is comb it. But like I genuinely believe I can do a frontal. So I think tutorial culture has like stepped in at the right time, whereby like again affordable, it's more accessible to be beautiful too.
Yeah, and I think it, like you mentioned about like that taboo and stigma around it, that's now being removed. Because I know back in the day, if you had people doing their own hair, you think, oh my gosh, you just can't afford it. Like, I can afford to go and get my hair done. You're doing your own hair. Now you're like, oh my gosh, you did your own. Show me, tell me. Now you really want to know, like, oh, you can do it. I can do it too. So I think that's really good. Let's just take it more broadly now. So how, from your research, how have you found that young people are being affected generally with the cost of living crisis?
You know what? It's interesting because Alvin said something the other day and I thought it was quite interesting that like one thing about our community, especially like black, everything's a joke. So you'll be on Twitter and everyone is literally making it into a joke because if you don't laugh, you will cry. And like I my friends always make a joke about me as well. Like, so in my house we use Lurpak. It's my mom's favorite butter, etc. Like even till this day we still use Lurpak. But like I am like £7.
It's hefty now. And I used to be a Lurpak babe. Now
it's actually really hefty. But like my mom's not gonna change it. But like I guess the point I'm trying to get to is that like I think that we're aware of it and I'm like people are definitely having more conversations about it, but everyone is just making it a joke.
Yeah. And I think to add on to that as well, I think we make it a joke because we have to, because like we kind of in the report we kind of speak about this idea of perma-crisis, but it's the idea that we're always in a state of crisis in the UK, from like culture wars on like gender to austerity to like declining youth services, from a few pandemics to protests. That there's always another reason why we should be like stressed, worried, anxious. And like I think the Gen Z young people right now have like developed a like collective resilience.
Agreed.
That says, actually, I'm just gonna get it regardless. Is when we had the vision board session, I remember towards the end of it, we was like, yeah, so guys, are you still dreaming this year?
And they're like, yeah.
Yeah,
And
we're
I
still
think it's
dreaming.
interesting that you say that, because I always like talk about how I feel like our parents came here with like really good PR. Like it was like the land of gold, land of opportunity. And like we've just like been plotted in it. And like we don't feel the same way our parents felt. And I do think that like, again, I'm just guessing that a lot of people will begin to like move outside the UK. But for whilst we're here, we're going to sort of like use what we have, I guess, and like enjoy what is available, and like enjoy our family, enjoy our friends, and like but I don't think people.
It's such an interesting place. So I'm an avid traveler, right? I travel all the time. Everyone on the podcast knows I travel all the time, and I've been to many countries. Some I can see myself living in, some are just a great destination to visit, right? And it's this weird thing. When I leave the UK, I'm like, oh my gosh, the UK is so miserable. People who big up the UK, I'm like, no, it's such a miserable place. Like, oh, it's horrible, right? But then when I'm away for too long, I'm always like, but I want to come home. Like I had this sense.
I think it's community.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think it's the community.
I think it's community. If I could literally pick up my family and friends
and bring them with you,
I'll be gone.
Yeah.
I genuinely think it's community. And like even in the report we talk about like how everyone's outside but it looks different now. So like there's a lot of third spaces, and like with the declining youth service after lockdown, everyone's outside, but they're not outside partying, they're outside running, they're outside trying new activities. And I think that if we could generally pick up our friends and move and start again somewhere else, we would.
We would, yeah, absolutely. So I want to pick up back of what you just said there. That was my next question. So like you mentioned in the report, people are going out, right? There's so many. I think we're living in a good time. There are so many events going on, especially a bank holiday. You're having to pick and choose where you're going to go. Can you divide your time?
Half time.
Yeah, we're literally being spoiled when it's half term and bank holidays, right? But all of that costs money. There's so many things. A lot of these things are moving abroad now. People are having massive festivals, all of that. All I ever see is tweets about how much I just pay for this ticket and I want to go to that thing and that ticket. What did your report find? I know you touched on a little bit, but what did it find when it comes to people going out and having that community and being with their friends? I think lockdown, for me especially, changed my perspective of what seeing friends and hanging out with friends meant. I used to think it meant we have to go and have lunch, we have to go and have dinner. And then because we didn't have that option was removed from us, it was like, oh, let's just go for a walk or let's just meet up for a coffee. You know, it didn't have to be expensive things. But what did your report find with regards to that?
Just to echo Tumisha, as in, so people, I think, will still be outside, and there's still this big desire, because if you're locked in for a long time, you have to be outside. But then when you come back outside and you see that the drink prices are like astronomical, you see that the Ubers, you see that your favorite venues are closing down, you actually start to interrogate it a little bit more and say, actually, is this the same party? And Tom says this all the time, but is this the same party we've been going to since we were 18?
Like, you want me to go there again?
And here, sometimes the same music's the same. So I think people are like experimenting with like what like play, pleasure, leisure looks like in their life. And so like we had an event the other day. We had Tommy from Soft Life Ski on the panel, and he was essentially speaking about like, it isn't, when you think of like, I guess like marginalized communities, in his case like black communities in the UK, you think, oh yeah, they don't want to spend money, actually that's not true. He said that what people spent money to go do a luxury activity, which was like skiing and hemp style, but instead what I think was important to them was value for money. So it's like this is an activity that's thrown to them, so once they pay their money, they know that hotel was sorted, the transport, they knew the parties, they knew the DJs, they felt a certain level of safety that the security would look after them in this like foreign country. And like, it's like, I think that's where people just want more value for play, because they still want to play. They must play, because
you have to play.
In this, you know what I mean? In this dunya. However, like I think so value for money is a big thing. Anything else on?
I just think as well, they want to experience new things. So like, and I don't know if when you've been doing, like Amma says, I hardly ever go out to party anymore, because I genuinely feel like it's always the same faces, always the same experience. And I just don't want it. I don't want that anymore. And that's why people will spend money on holidays, because you experience a new culture, right? And I think that like Soft Life Ski have found the pinnacle point of like, okay, we're going to take a group of people who've never been skiing before abroad, and they're going to spend the money and enjoy their time skiing because they've never done it before. So I think that like people are still spending money, and like they're probably spending more money on play than they are on like necessities. That's just the reality, but because it's a big part of our community, right? And like it just needs to look different. Like it can't be just a normal party.
And I think we spoke a lot about, I think there was a big push from brands in like the last year or so. I don't know if it's because of budgets, I don't know if it's because of social culture, but a lot of the events, a lot of the free things that were happening were for influencer only.
Yes.
So they got like really like closed in, which meant it's like another thing, like the venues closing, etc. It's another thing that created like a barrier to entry. So then you're seeing, so in London, you actually can do a lot of, and London is expensive. Hey, don't let me, no, I don't know to like stitch this and say, what are you talking about? You just have, no, truly, no, London is really expensive. And at the same time, an Eventbrite, a Dice, a Resident Advisor, certain pages and communities and collectives like Nourishment and Summers Ours and all of those things, that there are like a ton of like free events. And I think that's because, and they aren't like just influencers and they aren't just like clout based, and it's just people who want to connect and like meet other people. We spoke at we spoke at an event whereby like just creatives are coming together. That was run by like 66 agency. So yeah, I think those things are like popping up like more and more. They aren't like permanent spaces, but they are like these temporary third spaces where people can come together, which I think we'll see a lot more of.
Yeah, I think it's just so important to have community. I think growing up, obviously you have your school friends, you have the friends you meet along the way, but then you realize, there's actually a whole life and a whole thing that I could get involved in, especially when you have a hobby. People, like you mentioned earlier about running and stuff, it's really useful.
Yeah. I'm going to make a point because Fem said something. He was also on the breakfast and he said that like community doesn't have to be for everyone. Like you're allowed to like niche down on your community. So for example, I go step every Tuesday, right? And like I invited one of my friends and she was like, I don't have rhythm, I'm not coming. And I was just like, you know what? Fair enough. But me and my best friend, we go every week and it's our bonding activity now. We run every Thursday together as well. And I think that like sometimes...
Is step women's only? Or...
Are you interested?
You want to try it? Yeah, it is women's only. But it's something that we do together every week. And then I've built like friendships in there as well because we all have the same interest that we are like doing together, if that makes sense. And I think that sometimes people think that like they always try like box Gen Z, they try and block marginalized groups. We're not the same type of people. We all have different interests, and I think that the Spenny report touches well on like how you can navigate different types of marginalized groups.
Yeah, it's so important, so important. Like I love books, but I love crime fiction. Like it's very specific niche.
Really, there's a book club for that on TikTok.
You're gonna have to give me the details
like,
because I've been
genuinely.
looking. Because all my friends are like, oh, Kia, everyone wants to read like non-fiction self-help, which I get. I don't mind a little bit of that sprinkled in, but I love a good bit of fiction. Like getting my brain churning. That's me, and I'm trying to find my community. So I might have to come to you afterwards.
Yeah,
for that.
I genuinely, one of the girls that work at Tag was saying, oh yeah, like there's this book club.
That's
and
me.
they do, like,
I'm gonna have to.
stories.
Yeah. Let's talk about mental health, right? Because that is also a big topic on the podcast. We always talk about it. Money and mental health are intrinsically linked. So what did your report find when it comes to young people and their mental health and how the cost of living may or may not have affected it?
So I think this is sensitive topic because we spoke to around like 180 young people, and like we found, I think it was around like 60% of them said that there had been no change to their like mental or physical health as a result of the cost of living crisis as of, I think that was like Jan 2023. And at the same time, that means there are like 40% of people who have. Do you know what I mean? And we didn't really ask on the flip side. But like what we do know is that like financial pressures, specifically for like marginalized people, are like a constant. Like every decision that they might make in their life around like where they study, where they play, where they eat, what they do, who they connect with, is kind of affected by like money, and even more so. Specifically, we obviously work with a lot of young creatives right now who we see like personally are like feeling the pinch. So I think undeniably, we also saw that like gym memberships were down as well. That also could have meant that like people might be like finding ways to like work outside, but I actually do think that like health and fitness is quite and wellness more generally is expensive. And at the same time, I think a completely separate point is that we're also seeing like this like vibe shift that is moving away from, I guess, hustle culture. And saying that like, and I think people working 9 to 5 and then the 5 to 9 and saying, oh, actually, I want to prioritize my like wellness. I saw a term called them like Gen Zen, and that was the idea that like a generation who's prioritizing their well-being over like their labor and thing like. And I remember, I don't even remember anyone remembers, but it was like a year or 2 years ago. Anytime someone would ask you, "Oh, what's your dream job?" people would say, "Oh, I don't dream of labor." And like I remember that, like seeing that, I was thinking, "Oh my god, yes," because I essentially kind of do my dream job now, but like.
So
It's
laborious.
so laborious. Like, as in, like, if I could, if there was an option to like not do nothing and be like, and be completely wealthy, yo,
I think most people would just take that.
I'm gonna pick it. Do you know what I mean? And so I think we're starting to like imagine alternatives around that. Yeah, I think that was the general sentiment. So I think just naturally, because it'd be irresponsible for us to come here and say, oh, people are resilient and they're fighting through. No, a lot of people are going through it as a result. And like I think Young Minds has like a stronger report on like the effects of like finances and how it affects young people, young people's mental health.
Amazing. I want to talk about another topic then. A really big topic. If you go to any podcast, there's always some conversation around it, right? It's love. Love, huh? There's always a conversation around love. So I think that's often something that's left out. You know, whenever we talk about money, we're talking about it with regards to every other aspect of life. We don't also talk about love, and that's a massive thing. So is there an impact? Has there been an impact of love and money with the cost of living crisis?
100%. I think somewhere in the report it says that like in about 30 countries the average date price is £100. And like I went to Nando's the other day. If you're eating for two, it's about like £50 to £60. It used to cost £30. So there's definitely like pressure. And I think again, I'm just making an assumption that it's probably affecting men more than it's affecting women because they would pay for dates more. And I think the way people date now is going to be completely different. People aren't going out. I'm in a relationship. People aren't going out as much. Like people are being a bit more intentional with like if they're really dating someone, they have to like there has to be more than just like this conversation that they might be able to have. There needs to be intimacy. They need to see a future with that person. But also people are just opting out to not date anymore. Like it's just too expensive. And I think that in the report we touch on about how like you shouldn't be penalized for being single or choosing to be single because your money just doesn't stretch that far. But I think often our society are quick to call people like broke if they don't want to pay for a date or they don't want to go on a date. But like actually no, I just have other priorities right now and that's okay. And I also think that like people are dating themselves. People are learning themselves as well. Like Alvin said, we've had back to back. Like we've had the cost of living crisis. Before that we had lockdown. Before we had Black Lives Matter. So I think people are just like relearning themselves, dating themselves before they can extend to date someone else. And people are dating their friends, which 50-50 split. We go on a date, you pay your price, I pay my price, and I think that that's okay. And people I think like we need to like shift our mindset of like if a guy can't pay for a date, then he's broke, etc. Like. If you're really dating for love and you're dating for your future, then you should be okay both spending money in that relationship to make that person happy. Girls, if you want to attack me, that's between you and your God. I'd be real. But like, I just think that like where people are going, if they're choosing to date, it's because they're dating long term, and long term looks different. It doesn't look like spending X amount every single week or one person pouring in and the other not. So yeah.
Amazing.
I remember at the time of writing in the report, there was an uptick in the sales of All About Love by Bell Hooks. And I think that was an interest, and we note that in the report, and that was interesting to see. I think there is, I think to obviously spend the time to understand love feels like people are doing a lot more like work around like what it means to be in like loving relationships rather than just like, I think when we all have money, what? Like, I can do a million talking. When I have money, what? What about me? I'm going to go on dates. I'm going to go on dates. Because it's fun, because you get to do the things that you want to do. You get to like maybe meet new people. I think I have quite a positive outlook on it. I'm not like jaded yet, like other people. But I think but however, when I saw the uptick in like All About Love, I think it pointed towards the sign of actually, like love is an investment, and like the rewards are like intimacy and care and respect and understanding. All those like really beautiful, important things that we all deserve. However, if it's too expensive, it means that we're kind of living in a world where people are like kind of devoid of that, particularly like young people who are from like marginalized backgrounds, which is quite like, I guess, like upsetting. And I think just like reiterating the thing around like, how do we not penalize people? How do you create like events and opportunities whereby people can still be afforded, and spaces where people can be afforded intimacy, care, respect? Because all those things you can get platonically, you can get it from family, you can also get it from a partner over time. we just have to like imagine alternative. I keep saying that, but we just have to like right
We
now
have to get
really
inventive.
we have to get inventive because you still deserve love. And because they're genuine, there'll be a young boy right now who'll be sitting at home saying that, oh yeah, I want to be in a relationship or I want a partner. And actually I don't know why I gendered it. It could be anyone sitting at home saying I want this. And then
Society will tell you because
Society-
you can't afford the
because you
date
can't
that's
afford.
£150, you're not deserving of it.
Yeah,
is
true.
deserving of it, and that is when it gets like problematic. But like I really did see, I remember when we held the vision board workshop. I remember on one table there was like a group of young women who were like, oh yeah, we're decentering men. We're going on friends dates, men are mad, that type of thing. And then there was another 24-year-old that was just like, she was a real yearner. She was like, yeah, me and my boyfriend are getting married. I love when young people get married, I don't know why. I just, especially when it's just on their own accord, no like outside cultural pressures, just because they're in love. You know, the people that are just in, like, she said, I'm going to New York, I'm going to New York, we're getting married. So I think across the board, there's a spectrum. But it is ultimately a little bit more difficult to love.
And I think that's somewhere in the report as well. We talk about like people that are already in love and in relationships and how they're like able to split cost and how that's like benefiting them and how it feels more like I want to say companionship, rather. It feels like they're both sharing the burden of the cost of living crisis, which is also interesting.
Yeah, I put on my story this morning, and I said I want to put out to the world. If anyone wants to fall in love, so we can go to Soho Farmhouse, let me know. Let me know because I'm available.
The call out was there.
Thank
there.
you.
If you wanna, we're gonna put all the details in the link.
Appreciate it.
So straight to you.
Great.
For sure. No, but literally, we had this out of home that go out into the world, and I think one of the questions was the copy was like, oh, is it love or is it an inflationship? And it's real because if you it's expensive to live, to exist in London. If you're in a relationship, sometimes there's things that just split in
There's
half.
like this thing on TikTok as well. I hate the way anyway, there's this thing on TikTok, right? And it's like every time you leave your house with your partner, and like it's like the man leaves his house by himself, and he's not spending that much money. As soon as he leaves with his woman,
Money.
money. And my boyfriend says, "This is you." Like, and I'm just thinking I don't think that's fair because do you know what I mean? But like, I do think that there is this like thing that women are more likely to spend than men anyway, and men are a bit more like conscious and like building for their future. The pressures are completely different. Do you get what I mean? And I think that men are probably subconsciously thinking further ahead and like how they can save for like marriage, etc. And like choosing, actually, no, I'm not ready for that, so I'm not even going to commit to anyone right now. But then it just makes finding love even harder.
It does. I know. But I feel like from everything that you said, there is still hope. I think that's the key thing. There is still hope. You just have to get creative. It's might just not be the Hakkasan and the Nobus that is always on social media. It might have to be.
Do you know what I mean? And social media shouldn't tell you that if your partner isn't taking you to these places, it means they don't love you or they're not worthy to like. They don't find you worthy.
Absolutely. This has been such a good conversation. Really, really good. Before we end, I want to ask you both, what is one key insight that you want our viewers and listeners to resonate with when it comes to the reports? Like one key insight that maybe shocked you, or one that you think, everyone should remember this from the report?
I think it's always going to come down to like beauty and desirability bits for me. Like it's just so, I think, important, and how it shapes the ways we exist, particularly as like marginalized folk, black people, etc. So yeah, I really, really do think, guys, this is like a beautiful opportunity for us to just like tear it down. Like it don't have to exist in the way it has. We don't have to all collectively put the pressure on each other. Like if we all just decide, like, you know, we want to be butters. Like, do you know what I mean?
We're all there in unity.
In unity, let's all just decide, like, to just put it down. Like less effort, less stress, less pressures, less. I think right now is a moment where we could practice less, because I think society has told us like more for so long, and I think that's what the report is like. I think teaching me more and more. Like every time I kind of go back into it, it's like, oh, actually, no, we don't need that, and actually we don't need that, and actually we don't need that. And again, we can like imagine alternatives. I think that's my biggest like learning / insight.
I think mine would be about being outside. I think that sometimes you can feel like pressured if you don't want to go to a party, and like this is for like young people. If like you can feel pressured if you don't want to go to a party, you don't want to go to a concert. But I think that like outside looks different now, and I think it's okay for you to say as an individual, actually, I don't want to go there, but I'm going to go here by myself and meet new people that like and have similar interests to you. And I think again, the rise in the third spaces is so beautiful. And I always say that like we had this, it was in community centres, and they took them away from us. And I really like how people are growing their own first spaces in like niches that they find interesting. And there's a lot of affordable free ones. Like I go to a run community every Thursday, and it's free. You go, you run, you meet people that run and like will give you the confidence to get better at it. And then you go home. And I think it's nice to do other things outside partying, which for a long time, it felt like our culture was so centered around like music and partying when there's so much more to us. So yeah, I think that's the most interesting one.
Love that.
Amazing. I like both of your insights. Thank you. For everyone listening and watching, where can they find you and find out more about the report?
Sure. So for the report, you download it on tagagency.co.uk.
Just to let you know, the link is not broken as well. It's just part of the bigger, wider marketing scheme.
So yeah, download there. We also have a resource hub that we update quite regularly, and that has like, so we're here telling you about, oh yeah, you can do this free thing. No, the free things we're talking about, they're in our bio, and that's around like you get to shadow senior creatives, free wellness classes for LGBTQI plus people, a community for South Asian creatives, like really a lot of like free things in our bio on social.
And I think just adding to that as well, even if it's as simple as like sign up to a Tesco club card, collecting your Nectar points, because you can save money on that if you're not already signed up to those things.
And then is there anything? Oh, and follow us at Tag Agency UK. My socials personally are Alvin Owusu, just like my name.
And mine is Tom Belogan.
Amazing. All the links will be in the episode description as well, so you don't have to try and remember it as you're listening. You can click and go and find it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll be back again next week with another episode. Bye, guys.